Ladies and gentlemen, is Mac 10, ESM, Esports Monies, Fury and Storm Rage, the Baldezian Buzzsaw, whatever you want to call me, and today we are going to be going over some new player, I guess, information. And I've seen a lot of people on Eden and Final Fantasy XI talk about, wow, your game looks so good, or they don't know what I'm talking about when I mention a specific add-on or plugin or some part of their config. So I've decided to make two guides. One is a very general guide to just getting the game set up, making it look good, making it run at a consistent 60 FPS, etc. And then one guide will be on more advanced stuff later. Now, the advanced guide is going to be mostly about playing well and stat priorities and using a Shooticast and gear swap. This guide might touch on some things on the periphery of that, but that's not what this guide's about. It's just to make your game look and feel more modern. So with that being said, let me look at my notes for this video, which will be linked because my notes include links to all of the, pretty much everything that you see here, except, you can see my cursor. This right here, this is the XIV bar. Actually, no, I did link that. So if you're curious, that is linked, but pretty much everything else I think is going to be explicitly talked about. So I did play and do play a lot of Final Fantasy XIV. I played 11 primarily. NA release to 2011. Basically, Abyssia is when I stopped. So I came from there to 14 and then back to 11. And lastly, again, I do play on Eden. We use Windower. I don't know what Windower version we use, a sheet of E3. Most of what I'm talking about, if you use a sheet of E3 and you play on Eden, everything I'm going to say has a high chance of being applicable to you. If you are a Windower user or you play on Horizon or another private server, it's very possible what I'll say is applicable to you, but no guarantees on that. So, mods will definitely be applicable to Horizon. So first, let's talk about out-of-game setup, even though we are already in the game, as you can see. The first thing I want to talk about is the Atomos proxy versus DG Voodoo. So basically, this is using a version of Direct3D that is so ancient that your GPU probably doesn't even register it as being a 3D application. Or at least that's what it feels like. The point of this is, one, yes, there's performance uplift. You've got a lot of granularity in your controls if you use DG Voodoo, but I've got a computer that is way overkill for this game. It's got a 3080 Ti, I'm playing at 1080p, and I'm using a 5950X. So a 16-core modern CPU. I see performance issues with DG Voodoo. Now, they aren't crippling, but I tend to live around 60 FPS if I use the Atomos proxy. So strongly recommend the proxy. I'm not going to go into the granularity of the controls in DG Voodoo, but I will go into why you want to set one of those two up. And the reason you want to set one of those two up is the FPS plugin. So once you've set that up, I've linked both of them in the doc. They're very easy to install. It's literally just drop these into your boot mod folder. In fact, I think I can show y'all. So what I have here is, let me move this guy over so I can still read my notes. What I have here is essentially a clean install of Eden. So there might have been changes to the installer. It's been since late 2022, which is when I started on Eden. So there might be a more up-to-date installer out, but this is what was there when I started. If you go into, actually no, it's not in boot mod, but it goes into boot mod. It doesn't come with it. I actually kept this installed so I could go through and look at what add-ons that came with it versus what add-ons are allowed that don't actually come with the installer. And the answer is almost all of them do come with the installer. The ones that aren't, again, are in the file. But once you've got the proxy set up, there is an add-on that you will have installed by default called FPS. Now, I go into FPS. Actually, I don't need to go into the folder, but FPS, if I type /FPS, if you notice in the upper left, I have an FPS counter now. That's a very small bonus for what it does. What it actually does is it unlocks your FPS or sets it to what you want. So if I type /FPS2, my frame rate is now locked at 30, and it looks like garbage. Now if I type /FPS1, my frame rate is now locked at 60. Now if you look in the upper right, I'll kind of tilt this so you can see some contrast. You can see it's not quite at 60. If you type /FPS 0.5, or maybe 0.9, but 0.5 is what I use. Basically, that tells it, if you type FPS 0, this doesn't work. It needs to be a decimal. Once you've done that, if I hit enter, the frame rate is unlocked. Now, it's very, very peripheral in terms of the performance you get, but it does, I have noticed in certain cases, I will get a slightly higher frame rate when using that FPS 0.5. Now, the problem here is when you unlock that frame rate, this game will run at 90 or 120 hertz in a lot of places because it's ancient. But the game's physics and movement are based around 60. Once you start going above 60, things start to break very quickly. So you don't want the game running above 60. But you get better performance if this is uncapped, and the you cap it elsewhere. So where do we cap it? So we bring this guy up. So this is an NVIDIA example. You can do the same thing with AMD drivers. It's just going to look a little bit different. You go into Manage 3D Settings, go into Program Settings. Sorry, buffering. Takes a second to load all the programs. The program you're looking for is going to be called XI Loader. If you go to Add, it's going to pop up. Maybe. Yeah, so recently used, if you played the game recently, it's going to detect that this was a 3D program being opened. And if it doesn't pop up instantly, you can browse for it, but if it doesn't pop up instantly, that might mean that you haven't ran it recently after installing either DG Voodoo or the D3, D8 proxy. So once you've got this, once you've got the game selected, if you go to Global Settings, max frame rate off. This is really simple. Turn on, and 60, boom, you're done. Hit OK. But I'm going to cancel because this is just my profile for Elden Ring. So did that just to give you guys an idea of how I limit my frame rate. If you are a Steam Deck enjoyer and you are running this on the Steam Deck, there is a detailed Steam Deck guide that's in the Eden Discord. But one thing it doesn't cover is if you uncap the frame rate using the FPS plugin or add-on, you can then limit the frame rate hardware side in the Steam Deck controls, and you can do it while you're playing the game. Like, you don't have to do it every time, but I'm saying if you are mid-game and you hear me right now, you can press like 3 buttons and set it. Now, you might be thinking, it's kind of a pain in the neck to load up the FPS plugin and load it at a decimal fraction every single time. That sounds like a massive inconvenience, and it would be. So we have here, back in our clean install of there we go. In this clean install, if you go into your Ashita, you go to config, scripts, Ashita scripts. There will be this file, default.txt. This is an example of one that is fresh out of the installer, assuming the installer is still the same for the last 18-ish months. Go to default, and what this does is this loads all of the things that are loaded by default. So your FPS plugin is actually loaded by default, but you can add in a command like, if I want to /FPS 0.5, if I add that there, might need to put in a wait command just to be safe, but if anything I add there will be booted up on launch. So this config, this is not what mine looks like, but this is what the standard that comes with it looks like, and it's really easy to set up. Basically, I'm going to talk about a handful of add-ons here, and if any of these add-ons are important to you and you want them, like there's some add-ons I don't want running 24/7, but some add-ons I do. And the ones that I do get loaded in here so that whenever I load the game, regardless of which character, I have all those add-ons loaded and configured the way that I told it to in the default script. So if you're setting this up, I'd strongly recommend adding a load FPS /FPS 0.5. It's already loading the FPS add-on. So don't save. Just keeping this as a default template. Now let's look at next on our list. So I've gone over the default file. We've gone over the NVIDIA control panel FPS settings. 4 gig patch. Now this just kind of prevents crashing. It's really easy to set up. There's a link to it in the Google Doc. Go and install it. It's designed for older programs in general, kind of like DG Voodoo is, but it's something that is, like DG Voodoo, commonly applied to Final Fantasy XI, just given its age. Next, we have pivot setup. Okay, so I'm going to bring the file directory back. Again, this is what yours should look like by default. There might be some differences, just because this guy has been the installer could have been updated since, just to have more modern stuff in it. I don't think it has been. If it has been, it's probably only been updated once. But if you go into your plugins, you have a plugin called XI Pivot right there, and I have a link to where to download XI Pivot, and it's a form link, so it also explains how to install it, etc. In that Google Doc. And what Pivot does is Pivot lets you. If you played Final Fantasy XIV and you know what Penumbra is, it's Penumbra. It lets you hot swap mods in real time. So once this is set up, you need to have, I believe, yeah, you're going to have a load pivot in your default. Let me see if it actually comes. I don't think it does. It does not. So you will need to add, for plugins, it's /load space whatever it's called. For add-ons, it's add-on space load. I mean, you can see it right there. So once that's loaded, type /pivot. So these are mod packs that I am not using down here. These mod packs are the ones I'm currently using. Now, this list is a priority system, so if there's a mod that overwrites a specific DAT, which controls what something looks like, so let's say I have a mod that makes my Republic Acton look prettier. If I have that mod installed and I have 2 of them, so one in here and one in here, it will use the one highest on the list. So this is a map DAT pack. This is Eden DATs. I believe they are, it's not renamer stuff. So there are certain things in the game that are era that we have essentially buffed or made a little bit easier. So you can see Mist Melt maybe is the name of one down here. Now that was actually included in the Eden DAT pack up here. So what is the Mist Melt maybe thing about? Mist Melt is an item that you use in a cop mission that debuffs a boss, and it makes the fight a lot easier. Why am I bringing this up? By default, the DAT shows that it can't be traded on the auction house. But we allow it, and by having that updated DAT pack there, I can now view Mist Melt on the auction house and trade it with other people. Which is really, really nice, because I also had way more than I needed for the fight, and they're a lot of work to get, and I didn't want to just throw them away. They're not worth much, but I didn't want, someone could use them. Next, Amelia HD, Pack 1 and Pack 2. You can consider these to be of the same, basically the same thing. They are complete revamps of the graphics of a zone. Why do I have 2 of them? Well, there's, I believe, different zones covered in each. One of them's an older one, and I saw zones that weren't listed on the main first one I have. Both of these listed in the Google Doc. So the main one on top, Amelia HD older on the bottom, and the bottom one, FFXI HD. Now that's the Ashen Bulbs pack that most of you are familiar with. There's 2 versions, a upscaled double texture mode and a quad or X4 prime mode pack for it. I've never used the X2 mod, but you probably should, because the X4 mod will cause you to crash when you are under situations where you have massive load on the game. So Dynamis, that's a crash. If you're doing an H&M and there's 50 bodies there, good chance of a crash. Dynamis is the big thing though, because you crash, then you come back, and now you're weakened for 10 minutes, and everything sucks, and you're a clown. So what do I do to avoid this? Click it down there when I go into Dynamis. The game looks worse, yes, but it's Dynamis. I'm not there to have fun. So, These two packs right here, you know what FFXI HD does. These two packs don't include a mod for Bastock Mines. They include one for the Moghouse, and they include one for Gustaberg, which we're going to go look at in a moment. But my mines looks way better than vanilla, so how am I doing that? Two things. First is, if you open up your Sheeta and you hit the little pencil icon, you click whatever profile you're going to load, go down, there's a pencil icon down here, click that, you'll get this menu. Menu size and window size should be the actual resolution of your display. Menu size controls your chat window, your actual menus, all the menus in the game, all your UI is controlled by that. Background size, that's the resolution of the things on your screen that aren't just the menus. So the game itself, my character, the monsters, things being rendered, the environment. Turn that up to 4K. Just turn it up to 4K. It's super sampling at 1080p, but it does look better. Can your computer handle this? If you have a GPU that was a respectable, mid-tier card 10 years ago, you're totally good. So, remember that this game is very old. So, the FFXI HD pack is being used in Bastock Mines right now, again, because we don't have an updated one for Amililla. Amililla? It's not Amelia, it's Amililla. The FFXI HD is the Ashen Bulbs pack, again, you're all familiar with. But let's go to Gustaberg and show you what the Amililla pack looks like. This is a very different Gustaberg. Valkyrum Dunes looks way different and way better. I could see someone saying that subjectively they don't like the way that this area looks if you're, you're very attached to the original Gustaberg. Look, the Valkyrum Dunes pack is night and day. You're no longer getting flashbang by just existing. So, and look at the text. Look at the textures on this wall. This game came out like there are people that can legally drink that were born after this game was released. That were born after I started playing this game. Look at how good those textures look. All right, let's go back to the list. We've covered the default script. We've covered... Oh, one more thing about pivot. I've told you why to use it. I should show you how, too. Scroll lock. So, here's a Sheeta. Here's your plugins where you will install, or where pivot is likely already installed. In this folder, you need to make a new folder called DATS. And you need to make a new folder or drag the folder of the name of the mod. So if we do like Ashen Bulbs HD1, and then in this directory is where you'll have ROM, ROM 17, ROM 3, whatever all the ROMs are. They are in the directory that's in the DATS directory. So you'll need to make a DATS directory, then put your mod pack in it, and make sure if you extract it, whatever extractor you use ends with whatever folder's in the DATS file, immediately goes into your list of ROM files. That's how you set that up. Very simple. So that's the file directories. We've covered the FPS add-on. All right, now, next. This one's pretty freaking important. I thought about leading with this, but I kind of wanted to lead with outside the game because there's a lot of things you need to set up outside the game. So let's go to gameplay. I'm just going to scroll through my settings. Sort, auto. I do not know what type. Sorts by name. Okay, yeah, I use type 1. I like type 1. But keep inventory auto sort on. So what does that do? If I have 11 wind crystals and I find a 12th, I have to hit the sort button here and hit yes to sort, to make them into a stack. If I have sort on, things will automatically stack. Now, if you have 60 inventory slots and the last slot is 11 wind crystals and a wind crystal drops, you actually have to have an open inventory slot for it to fall into your inventory and then join in the stack. It can't fall directly into a stack. So you need to always have at least one inventory slot open. Y'all know who you are. Chat filters. Filtered from the log window. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just Yell to be filtered over here. Windows. Okay, so shared. I don't use shared. I use window 1 and window 2. So basically what this does, and I'll just leave this up if you want to copy this, is I've set this up so that this smaller half over here is my battle log, and the larger section of chat over here is all the chatting, link shell, tell, yells, all that stuff. And if you want to copy these settings, that's how you make it look like that and have two windows of that size at 1080p. And font colors, windows, log. Okay, so log window 1. All chat on. For self, nothing. For others, nothing. System, nothing. Window 2, chat, nothing. For self, all on. For others, all on. System, all on. And that's how I basically made a battle and crafting log on one and a chat log on the other. Miscellaneous. I like both. Definitely, I would say probably have log if you're going to pick between the two. But basically, you'll notice sometimes you'll get a damage pop-up number if you hit a mob, if you have this set to on-screen. But both, I like to see it in the logs. This is just the ability to toggle slash and on without typing slash and on. It's easier to type slash and on. Shadows. I typically leave them on normal, to be honest. But making a video, so I left them on high. Weather effects. I love the weather effects because if you look up at the sky, that controls the weather. Well, anything in the sky. Reason I will keep it off a lot of the times is the weather effects can make your game lag. And again, if you have a great computer, this game, there's just certain, ghosts in the code that just make this thing lag under certain conditions. I don't believe that there's anything I can do that will ever make Al-Zabi a perfectly 60 FPS experience, and parts of Whitegate. But the weather effects, specifically Earth weather, seems to hit my frame rate by like 5 or 10 frames, and I don't like that at all. So I keep weather effects on. I'll keep it on sometimes, but as soon as I zone into an area that's got Earth weather, I'm turning it off. Some other weather effects might, but for me, it's really just Earth weather that seems to mess with my frame rate for some reason. Armor display, yeah, just leave this on normal. A lot of these settings are designed from when the game was current, and there was, do you want it to look better here? Do you want it to look better here? And now you just leave it looking best because our computers are 20 years newer than the game. Footsteps effects I leave on. Keyboard size. I would strongly recommend Compact 1, and the reason I recommend Compact 1 is this old full-size thing is navigating, doing movement with your numpad. Compact 1 basically makes this more like a World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV experience. Key assignment, this will let you configure it. Oh, this is a really important one. Background aspect ratio. If your character looks like this, if your character looks suspiciously wide, it's because the default they assumed would be 4:3, which was the common aspect ratio of 2002. However, you can turn that to 15:9, 15:10, 16:9, 16:10, and 5:4. You have a lot of options here. It's actually fairly granular and impressive in what you can customize given the age of the game. So run that at 16:9 probably. If you're at 1080p or 720p or 4K and you don't have an ultra wide, you should be running at 16:9. Macro palette set. I like full. We're going to talk more about macros shortly. Weapon effect on, style lock, normal. I mean, a lot of these settings are not applicable, but I just leave them all on. Except furniture camera collision, you might want to turn that off, just depending on, if you have any bugs in your mock house. Software keyboard I leave off. Effects, this is... One thing I will point is that this filters on-screen effects. So if you turn this on, you won't see the effect. This can be really helpful for performance reasons. And most of the time when this becomes helpful is when you're in like a Dynamis group and there are 3 bards singing and 3 corsairs throwing out rolls. And there's just 18 people with buff animations popping up on them. Mouse... Oh, this is actually kind of important. So I turn off edge panning because you're playing borderless windowed. There's no reason to edge pan, and your mouse is... I mean, it's the mouse from your desktop at this point. Camera view, I like normal. Mouse control 1, I like. Now, these two right here, or these mouse settings, basically, if you play Final Fantasy XIV and you right-click your mouse to adjust your camera, this makes it work the exact same way. It makes right-clicking to adjust your camera natural and convenient. Now, it's still kind of buggy, because this game is intended to be a keyboard game or a controller game, but it is playable if I'm not, if I'm just casually like auto-walking, I will use this to adjust my camera, and if you hold the left mouse button while doing it, you'll actually walk in that direction. Global chat language filter. Oh, wow. Okay, so it automatically turns itself back on. There's a specific file in your install directory that you need to delete in order to permanently keep this off, and completely forgot about it for this video, so look at the Eden Discord. It's a single file you just delete, and it will, even though that says on, echo, we'll put that, that's shit's, yeah. I don't know, YouTube's gotten sketchier about mature language lately. All right, so we've done config. All right, next, you might have noticed in the upper right, I have a minimap. This is the minimap add-on. Is an add-on. So there is a link to downloading the minimap add-on and the All Maps plugin in the Eden Discord. Strongly recommend you get them both, but especially All Maps. So the reason why these weren't attached with the installer when I downloaded it was because it was fairly recent that the Eden devs ruled that these are usable on the server and that they don't, they're not a problem. So what do they do? Minimaps does what it says in the tin. Once you've got it downloaded, you just put the directory in your add-ons folder. Add a line. This is one that I added a line to my default scripts, so it will always run. If I do /minimap, I now have all of these customizations. You can be a square, or it can be a circle, however you want to do it. There's a lot of granular controls here, but I will say if you are using a modded map pack, so let me do /map. I'm using a modded map pack. I probably should. I'll add a link to this in the doc. The modded map pack. So as you can see, it shows the path to actually move around Vomp Hill. It adds Conero, it adds Goblin Camp, it adds the Stone Monument, Bubbly Bernie, and Leaping Lizzie's spawn area, as well as labeling unlabeled zone lines. And here, unlabeled zone lines as well. So if you use this modded map pack, it will not by default be used in your minimap. You need to actually overwrite your game files with the modded map pack files, so be careful and mindful and maybe back it up before you do that. If you're using Ashita v4 or you're on Horizon, the Ashita v4 version of Minimap will let you select a directory to pull the modded maps from, so you don't have to worry about this. You can actually basically kind of like pivot it where you're not overwriting your game files, but you can hot swap it in real time. But for me, my game files for these map dats are actually overwritten with these annotated maps. Now, All Maps. All Maps is very simple. All Maps is a plugin. Plugins are generally, I think, more powerful than add-ons. What does that do? All right, well, let's see. Map, change map. Will it let me? It should. Norg. I don't have a map to Norg. I don't have a map to any of this. I don't have any maps. Like, map. Durflin, Past Shallow Marshlands. I guess it's only letting me view these maps if the game thinks I have them. Because normally if you zone into an area and you don't have the map and you type /map or you open up your menu and go to map, there is no map here. You just have where you are on this grid and that's it. All Maps removes the process of collecting map key items. You just have access to every map in the game. Get it. Seriously get it. It's huge. Especially if you combine that with annotated maps, it makes your life so easy. Next, we have deeps. Oh, no. Before we have deeps, which is going to be just cursory, we'll talk about that later, we have macro fix. So, if you notice, my macro bar pops up really, really quickly and goes away really, really quickly. This is an add-on called macrofix. You type /addon load macrofix. You can add /addon load macrofix to your default .txt script. Macro Fix is already loaded in your Sheeta launcher. It's part of the default pack that comes from Eden. It's done. Your macros are now instant. Same for one called Instant Auction House. If you make a bid on something on the auction house and you have like that 5 or 10 second latency while it says your bid is processing, that's actually just that never was a thing. It was just a lockout to keep you from spamming it with bids. Add-on load Instant AH. Your bids are now instant. Instant AH, I believe, is also included with the default launcher and is in my default scripts. So that's that one. Next one, deeps. /load deeps. So if I'm actually going to go shoot, I have the wrong macro bar up, so we are just going to cannonball a huge hornet. And if I get 5% in here, that'll be very embarrassing. I did not. All right, so you can see this. It's got the cannonball, hit, average, max. It says it's 100% because it's 100% of my damage. If I've been auto-attacking a mob as well, then it will have like what percent my auto-attacks contributed. The most important thing you gain from this, there's a few important things you gain from this. One of the most important things if you're a melee DPS is you can see what your miss rate is. Don't look at your hit rate, look at your miss rate and subtract it because it also categorizes crits separately from hits. So it's very good to diagnose what your accuracy looks like. And remember, you have a 95% cap for accuracy, so very important. Now, if you are under level 30, don't worry as much about your accuracy because accuracy food scales sort of exponentially with more accuracy. You have like 400 accuracy at level 75. You might have, 50 in Valkyrie Dunes. And you add 10% to 400 is 440. And 2 accuracy is a 1% hit rate gain. So you can see how if you're increasing that number by 10%, 5 accuracy, it's only 2.5% hit rate. So sushi sucks in the Valkyrie Dunes. But my point is, once you're like level 30-ish and beyond, you should be really looking at this for your hit rate. Another thing is, if you are a healer, if you are someone that casts buffs, look at this. Because if you are a healer in a party where you cannot haste everyone at once because you need more MP or something along those lines, or you need to think, how important is getting this buff on this person because I can only put it on one person, by loading deeps, it's just a quick and dirty damage meter. It is not a detailed parser, but you can at least see who's doing the most damage and go, I should probably haste the person that's doing, 30% more damage than the person I was going to haste. Stuff like that. Now, gear lock. Load gear lock. This is kind of tertiary to this video. It's going to be in the other video on just Ashita casting a lot as well. But if you notice, I just changed my gear. I didn't blink. I'm still in the same set. If I change this to this, to type GL blink, I don't leave gear lock loaded by default because I don't leave Ashita cast loaded by default. So we're going to unload gear lock. So why do we want to stop that? Well, that works on everyone. Every player that's near you will not be blinking. When people are swapping gear, which is an advantage for many, many, many reasons, they're going to blink. And if you are with them and you're, thinking, well, I don't use a Ashita cast, I don't use gear swap, that's all well and good. But if you need to cast a spell on them, you're going to lose your target when they blink. So it's really nice to have to know about gear lock. Like if you're in Dynamis, there will be people there that are swapping gear and that are blinking. And if you want them to not be, gear lock is a very useful tool for that. Recast. What does recast do? Again, I don't have my red macro bar up, and I'm just trying to be quick, so... you saw when I did cannonball. We'll cannonball again. Up here, if I add on load recast, I get this. Shows me the recast of spells, abilities, everything. It is awesome. Add-on load recast. Add-on load skill chains too. Also a fantastic one, but that'll be covered in the Ashita cast video. But the recast one's very, very powerful because ideally, you can see all the macros I have here. Config, we're actually going to we're going to swap just to the blue macro set. You can see all the cooldowns I have, or all the spells I have on here, and all the abilities I have. I now know what I can do. And a lot of the times, if you're playing, like especially something like Blue Mage, I'm spamming stuff nonstop, I'm not looking at my TP bar because it's governed by whether or not I have MP and whether the cooldown's ready. And the primary limiter a lot of the time is just that cooldown. So knowing that's really important. Same is true for a lot of jobs. But also, if you are like a Sam sub warrior and you are partying, now you know when your Berserk is ready. You know when your Utsusemi's off cooldown. If you're sub-nin for any reason, you know when your sneak attack and trick attack cooldowns are ready. It's incredibly powerful. Next one, EXPmon. Add-on, load, EXPmon. This shows your current EXP, its merits. This little 128 should be my total merit count. I don't have 128 merits. I have like, I think 0 right now. I just spent a load, but basically it'll have your current EXP to the next level, automatically calculate your TNL or TNM, and it will show you your limit points or XP per hour for a party. If I kill one mob and get EXP and then an hour later I go to a party, that's obviously going to be very skewed, so you can type /XP reset, and it's reset back to the baseline, and we'll start again measuring EXP per hour once you get EXP from a source. Chatmon. If you do /addon load Chatmon, addon load Chatmon /T Fury and Stormrage testing. You could hear, I think you could hear that. My desktop audio is deliberately very quiet, but if you hear that, what it does is gives you a sound effect whenever certain chat things happen. You'll get a notification when you join a party. You can edit the sounds if you go into the Chatmon folder. Chatmon, I believe, comes by default installed, and it's really useful if you're alt-tabbed to know that someone's trying to talk to you. It's also useful if you're alt-tabbed to notice someone is trying to invite you to a party. There are default sounds for most things here, but you can customize them however you want. So that tell sound you just got is the tell sound that I have in Final Fantasy XIV, which I wanted to copy here. Auto join. So if you ever see someone that is AFK in Quifrim Island waiting for the black mages to pick them up and use them as a sync key, /addon load auto join, and there's a few settings you can configure in the auto join folder in your add-ons folder. Basically, what auto join does is you get invited to a party, you will automatically accept it. And it will even give you text messages saying you've been invited by this, you are now accepting this, and then it will join the party for you. It's pretty handy, especially if you're dual boxing. It's very, very nice. iBar and PBar. Add-on load iBar. That's a huge hornet. It says it's weak to, that's a dingbat, sorry. Weak to piercing, ice, wind, lightning, light. However, if the mob aggroed, it would also have its aggro up here. Remember, S is sight, not sound. H is hearing. M is magic. If it says N/A or not applicable, it means it doesn't aggro. It'll also have an L for linking, etc. It will also, notice it tells you the job. If you're a blue mage player, this is really, really important because it tells you what you can steal MP from. Same for black mages. And lastly, Equip Viewer, which it does not come installed by default, and I do have a link to the Equip Viewer add-on. What does the Equip Viewer do? It's down here. It's this thing down here. It's really easy to set up. It's Equip Viewer. Now, it does lag a little bit, so if I load a Sheeta cast and I start gear swapping, it will not be able to update everything in real time as fast as you need it to with Blue Mage, just because Blue Mage, every cast is so quick. It won't be able to update entirely with weapon skills sometimes, just because there's a little bit of a latency. But if you're running around Dynamis and you are gear locked, this shows you what you're actually wearing at all times. It's a very convenient tool to have. The reason it lags is because it was a port from Windower. Now, again, I just want to reiterate, Deeps isn't the best parser, but it is a good, useful tool to have. There's another parser called kparser, and that will be covered in the other video. So I think that's about it. Yeah, that looks like pretty much it. We've covered mods, we've covered setting up the game to make it look pretty, we've covered a lot of add-ons. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I'm going to go over and look through my settings again. Oh, these are just the logs, so miscellaneous. Again, I typically run around like this, but it is a lot prettier like this. Basically, if there's not Earth weather, I mean, look at that freaking skybox. It's gorgeous. This game does not look like it's 20 years old. You can always leave character models displayed maxed, in my opinion, because if there's so many that it's becoming a problem, then the game's probably culling them a bit anyway. Again, just going to show these again, because I mean, I've literally taken screenshots of these settings and sent them to people a million times. So again, these are the controls for making the mouse feel normal. So cool, that's about it. I will put this video up. It might go unlisted and just post it in the Eden Discord. I might actually list it. Not 100% sure. I'm also going to I'll link the video in the guide and post the guide on Eden, and I'm also going to link the guide being the text, the companion text doc for this, and I'm also going to link that text companion to this in the video's description. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope this helps you.